Call the meeting to order. All those that can stand, please do so to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I sent it to Brian.
Okay, roll call.
We're all present except for Mrs. Chenoweth, who had sent her regrets.
She's becoming more educated.
Right.
All right, I'd like to, next item is approval of the agenda. We need to amend the agenda to add the September 13th meetings or minutes.
I would move to approve the agenda with the addition of the minutes from September 13th board meeting.
Support?
Moved and supported. Roll, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Okay, motion carries.
All right. With that, I guess we should probably go ahead and approve the minutes from September 13th.
We just had a minute to read them since we just
Yes.
got them tonight. Oh, I emailed them on Monday too. But we could take some time.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Under section H, on page 4, I'm a Mrs.
Did I call you a mister?
Yep.
I know Chuck was here, didn't I?
What's it?
Just to clarify.
They're not approved. Okay.
Oh, this is your mortgage one.
I know.
There's something good with the program.
There's another item on page 3 of 4. Under item 4, there's the first sentence says, "This approval is not final until a development agreement has been signed and recorded." And add the word "and" does not prevent the issuance of township permits necessary for building renovations disclosed in the application.
All right.
And the page numbering should say page whatever of 5, not 4.
You know, Microsoft Word wasn't being happy.
Page 5
Well,
of 4.
look
Five
at
of
how
4.
it's,
3 of 4, 4 of 4,
right, it's automatic,
5 of
so,
4, so we'll correct that, page 5 of 5.
yeah,
And 4 of 5.
Well, actually,
3 of
it should
5,
all say
2
of 5.
yeah.
That's weird.
Actually, 5 is 6. 1,
No, it's
2,
5.
3, 4, 5. So make corrections on page 2
3, 4, and 5.
to be 2 of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5.
Margins must have been off. Do you want the consent agenda approved or just the minutes?
Just the minutes at this time.
Well,
We don't have a consent agenda.
we
Did I
do,
print something
it's
on it?
got, financial report and treasurer's report in it.
I got the old
The old,
minute. Or,
the old agenda.
yep.
It just says receive and file.
Yeah.
That's consent agenda, so.
Okay.
So what are you looking, which one are you looking for?
Well, because we
added the
Added the
minutes to it
minutes.
separate? Okay.
We'll do it separate.
I would move to approve the minutes from September 13th, 2017 board meeting as amended.
Support.
Moved and supported, vote please.
Okay, Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, motion to receive and file the financial report and the treasurer's report for August.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Yes.
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 Yes, sorry.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Got a good start going here. Okay, any public comment before you get rolling?
I'm just gonna, Lynn Hansford, 1528 Gill Road. Just a couple questions on a couple line items, 'cause, before you guys get started on the cable TV franchise. In general, people are cutting that cord, and this is showing an increase in cable fees, but the last 2 years it's been going down. So how do you estimate up? How are you estimating up to $290,000 in the last two years? Or no, not last 2 years. The last year was 275. I guess you had 302 the year before. But anyway, what do you base that estimate on?
It's users, and what happens is cutting the cord, you still have to have Comcast. Cutting the cord is a term that means
Yeah.
you're not taking their TV service or their telephone service as all combined like they used to, but you still have to have their internet access. So
I understand how it works. I just wondered how you estimate up when so many people are just not using that. Young people just don't use that anymore.
We're basing it on the financials that we have. And as of August 31st, it was $232,875.20 that we had received so far this year.
August 31st, give me that number again,
$232,875.20.
875.
So we expect probably another check for around $75,000.
Okay. And then the other one on zoning fines, how could we not have any zoning fines? That just doesn't even seem realistic. There's nothing for 2017. That would mean nobody would be doing anything.
just
That's
hasn't
what-
been any, and it's,
We have a guy that comes in here all the time.
That's
He's
ordinance.
upset as get out, all get out.
that's ordinance, not the zoning. That's a different.
Oh, I'm, okay, all right. I'm thinking that it's fine. So no zoning fines.
Right.
Okay, that was it. Just wanted to,
All right.
a couple questions there.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, you want to say what? Gotcha. Just kidding.
Talk about Adam Boyd now.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Judy has something she'd like to bring up.
We got a call this afternoon, right before we left, actually, from Adam Boyd. I don't know if you've seen the picture all over Facebook, and I think it was in the Free Press about the guy from Highland that built a dollhouse for his 2 daughters. And somebody turned him in for not getting a building permit for that, so he happened to be in the building. And I told him that we were thinking about a playground at some point at the library, and if he was ever interested in participating in that, it would be a lot of fun to work with him. So his business has exploded because this was on Facebook. So he's been called by People Magazine all over the world looking for plans for his playhouses. So he called me today and he said, I have to talk to you before your board meeting. And he said, I have this company that called that they shoot videos and do stories or documentaries on different people that have like crazy things happen to them. And he said, I have a Skype tomorrow where they're going to start taping me. And he said, I need to have a project and people are asking me if I'm giving it to my community. I wondered if you'd be on board if I would build a playhouse at the library. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? And he goes, no. And he says, I'll get all the sponsorships so that everything would be paid for. It could be a great community project. And I'm like, okay, let me talk to the other in-house officials. We'll talk to the board tonight and the library director. Well, needless to say, the building like exploded. And oh, by the way, the build date is in 3 weeks. So it's like, are you kidding me? And then I called him back, and Jude had a couple ideas what she'd like to look like. And he goes, we can duplicate any building that you want. So, fun day in Highland.
It's good.
So, yeah, it was pretty cool. Kind of made everybody's day.
All right.
There's an announcement about the trick or treat hours on October 31st, are 6 to 8 p.m.
Any other? Okay, we'll move along to pending business. Number 7 is a leftover item from our previous board meeting. It was brought to us by our attorney, and it is in response to changes in state law. And I think if everybody's read their board packet, rather than reiterating all the verbiage in that, I'd like to just move to a motion, because we're at that point where we need to a motion to approve it. So I'm going to make the motion to approve ordinance number 459, an ordinance to amend the Highland Charter Township Code of Ordinances regarding unlawful purchase, consumption, or possession of alcohol by minors to conform to changes in state law.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Sylvia?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, motion carries.
Right, the next item, 8, new business. This is introduction of Z010, which is the zoning ordinance text amendments, and this is in introduction only. So there's no vote on it. This will come up at our next board meeting on October 11th. And this, I'll read the zoning, the memorandum from our planner. The latest round of text amendments addresses issues that have been presented to the Planning Commission either by staff due to our interactions with property owners or by the Zoning Board of Appeals due to recurrent requests that have been posed to them. In short, we're dealing with the following: fencing issues, simplifying permitting for small accessory structures in commercial zones, allowing continued occupation of homes in industrial zones as they transition to warehousing and other conforming uses, and allowing self-storage as a special use for deep commercial lots where a retail or office is or could be established along the public road frontage. Give you a couple of quick things that brought that up. There was a fence that was installed just on Livingston Road that was very attractive fence, put in without permit. It was reported in the process. It turned out the fence was 48 inches high. And our ordinance says that front yard fences can only be 42 inches high. So that meant he would have had to saw down his fence and lower the fence, which really wouldn't have worked the way it was designed. And the other part was the question came, where did the 42 inches come from? When you go to buy a fence at Home Depot or any of those places, they're 48 inches or 6 foot. So they have these standard numbers. These 42 inches an old number. Practically nobody uses it anymore unless it's just a really decorative little piece of fencing somewhere. So that issue will be addressed by changing the ordinance to allow for 48 inch. The allowing continuing occupation of homes in industrial zones as they transition to warehousing and other conforming uses. That the example came from Tool Time. The owner of Tool Time owns the home to the south now, purchased it. The homeowner, you can't occupy and have both businesses happening at the same time. So in this case, the woman that owns it is elderly, doesn't really want to move on to, she's got some plans, but there's a time delay. And what this allows for is in that situation, it's industrial zoning. So you can't have occupation and the industrial business at the same time. This would allow for those situations, and there's several of the homes in that district that have the same issue going on. So it would allow for concurrent use. wanted self-storage as a special use for deep commercial lots. That was brought up. The auto car wash that's next to, just west of Highland House has this extremely deep lot. And there's nothing you can do with the land that's back there. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of feet deep. So he had a thought that why couldn't he put in, I don't know if he could put in self-storage back there. Nobody can see it, it's out of the way. It went in front of the planning commission. The planning commission thought that was a good idea because we have a lot of lots that are like that. So it kind of gives the ability to be able to operate multiple things within the same lot that utilize the property better, increases the value of the property actually, so that'll be a benefit to from a tax base. And so that's a basic description of those. So no voting on this tonight, it's just an introduction. Is there any public comment?
I would just ask on the, down there where tool time is, how long will that joint use of the, I didn't really get that. You got a homeowner that's not ready to do something?
She's not ready to move.
To move, she just owns it as a resident.
And she sold it to this fella, and in order for him to occupy it, he has to actually boot her out. And he doesn't want to boot her out. He wants to give her the opportunity to be able to occupy the home. So until she's ready to leave.
So he's gonna rent it to her, rent her house.
Yeah, he has some kind of an arrangement with her, but there's other situations. So rent's probably the right terminology because there's a couple other units that are in there like that. I think Highland Treatment has one where they have an employee living in one of the houses and they can't use the property for anything else because the employee's living there.
So when a woman moves, then what happens? He just rezones the property?
Right.
For commercial?
Yeah, he'll take the house. The house may go down or it'll get converted to office or something, but it'll be for industrial use. So.
Okay.
All right.
We need a motion to introduce the.
I guess we do, don't we? Did I make that or not? No.
I would move to introduce Z010 amendment.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported?
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Screw myself up yet here. Okay, the next item. There's actually three parts to this. Tammy, I'm going to let you take over on this one because this is your bailiwick here. This is what all relates to voting.
Right. Well, we're getting new voting equipment this year. The state has mandated that, and we are required to have a accessible voting device in each polling location, and we're allowed to share 2 of those between 2 precincts if the precincts meet in the same location. So in order to save funds, I want to propose that we combine our precincts to pair them up so that in every polling location there'll be 2 precincts together. Currently we have 8 precincts meeting in 6 locations. So we already have 2 spots where there are already 2 precincts meeting. And now I would like to make it so we have 4 polling locations with 2 precincts meeting in each of them so that they can share those devices that will, so we don't have to obtain so many and maintain them. So I have put quite a bit of information in the packet here. We went through and reviewed the existing locations and some potential new ones, and considered a lot of factors like parking and room for the 2 precincts and other, things such as accessibility. And we're going to propose adopting 2 new locations. One is Highland United Methodist Church here on Livingston Road, and the other one is Holy Spirit Church on Harvey Lake Road. And then doing that along with adding another precinct at Spring Mills and maintaining our our location here at Highland Elementary, which already has 2 precincts. That will get us down to the 4 locations. And I think that will work really well. We talked quite a bit with the precinct chair people and with the election commission, and this is the recommendation that we came out of all that discussion. Do you have any questions on that?
I think it's a good idea. What it does is it takes care of a couple of serious issues with inclement weather, where we've had people that have had to stand outside so they just don't vote, they don't show up when it rains. This makes it a lot more accessible for everybody to have an indoor opportunity to stay out of the rain, and when you go to vote, you know you're not going to be hosed by some kind of a bad weather. So, and it's taken Tammy a lot of conversations. She had started with see if we could do some stuff out of the high school, and there was a lot of back and forth, and this, I think, is what we was a good resolution, I believe. So.
I agree. I think it's, I've been involved in it too. It's good.
So if you guys choose to approve this, voters are going to be notified through the voter ID cards that will be mailed out to anyone who has a change. And then also we'll be doing an information campaign through the newspaper and social media and email blasts and that kind of thing to get the word out. We have lots of time because we won't have an election again until August unless one gets booked in there somehow.
You never know on that one.
Right.
The only question I had, Tammy, is, you know, you're leaving 2 at Highland L. Why move 1 out to move 1 in? That, to me, that's going to confuse the voters a lot.
We looked at that a lot. Part of it had to do with location because of Highland Methodist Church being further west. We chose the precincts that were further west to go to that one. And then the precincts that were further east to stay at Highland L and kind of keep them grouped that way. There is change.
Plus you have one big precinct and one smaller precinct locked
Right.
together too, so it's not.
Since our precincts are, half of the precincts are over 2,000 people, 2,000 voters, and the other half of the precincts are under 1,700, I looked at trying to pair up the precincts together so there would be one big one with one smaller one, so that we wouldn't have, if we had 2 big precincts together, there would be more of a chance that the parking could be overwhelmed or the building entrance could get too clogged up. So we wanted to kind of balance things out that way too.
It's very good thinking. Do you want to make a motion to?
I would move to approve resolution 17-16 to designate polling locations.
Support?
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
All right. Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 And yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, and then additionally, there was a request for a budget amendment to cover the cost of printing and mailing the new voter ID cards for those people who would have their polling locations changed. And we put in there also a budget amendment to cover the cost of obtaining new laptops for the precincts. The laptops that we have right now were obtained in 2010, and they're getting quite old in terms of technology. And I heard stories that there were difficulties with getting them up and running in time for the elections, or having various little problems throughout the day. So we had intended to do this prior to next year's election, and as we were looking at pricing this year for budget purposes, the idea came up to have it budgeted for this year so that if there's good deals on laptops through the end of the year, with the holiday season, there may be sales or whatnot, then we could go ahead and obtain them this year and take advantage of those lower prices, if you guys were open to that. The budget amendment that was provided to you has both the laptop purchase and the
Election supply.
printing of the ID cards in there.
All right.
I would move to approve the budget amendments as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
All right. Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, next item is budget workshop. So, at your table here was the most current version with some tweaks over what was available to you earlier through an email. So, what we'll do is try and run through and look at some of the components that make up the proposed budget. If you, what you have in front of you are 2015 actual, 16 actual, 17 adopted, 17 amended, and 18 proposed. Current property tax, we'll start with the revenue, and that's right, if you can follow the magic pointer there. Judy Cooper is the one that makes those estimations, and they're based on current
Our taxable value.
taxable
Sorry.
values. And that, we estimate that to be $425,000. Mobile home taxes, which is a minimal amount that you get out of these mobile home parks, is up $500. You can see the building permits. We amended them to be $85,000 last year. We've upped that because of the number of building permits to $120,000. I think it was actually almost $160,000 or something. Heating permits were left alone. The plumbing permits are up 15,000. Other licensing permits, left those the same. When you get down to the item that has a little kind of pinkish box on it, that's what it's listed as sales tax. That's our revenue sharing from the state. And for you guys, you know, every time you go to the store and you pay sales tax, that tax goes to the state, and then the state turns around and redistributes it back to the townships and local governments, as well as keeping a lion's share for themselves. And that's called revenue sharing. So it's listed as that's the lion's share of where our money comes in from, our revenue. So Judy had estimated it was very likely going to be 1.6 million. So we're budgeting it at, pardon me?
For this year.
For this year, it's going to be 1.6 million. So we're budgeting 1.55 million for 2018. As Lynn had brought up, the franchise fees, additional $15,000, incidental amount on some of the others. And so the bottom line on the revenue total is budgeted at $2,692,700. The next line there, it's in the green, is the expenditure total for the general fund. It's budgeted at $2,604,254. So based on this current run at the budget, we're $88,446 under revenue. So that's a good thing. It means that we're not projecting to spend every dime that we get in revenue, and it does allow for possibility of things that may need to be covered, there'll be a little extra there for it. Okay, the rest of this, when we get into the salaries, this is important to understand that this budget is based on a 3% raise to all the employees, and that's across the board. So all of the numbers are budgeted with a 3% raise,
Not including the elected.
not including elected officials. So we'll start with the superintendent or supervisor's department. In the pink, we've got something that's come. A couple things that are happening this year. One is our ordinance officer is retiring on October 13th. And as of December 31st, our maintenance person is also retiring. So that opens up 2 positions, of which we had a discussion about at our last board meeting, and that's up for, we have a number of people who put in applications to fill that position. So I spoke with our maintenance work crew individual, Trevor Jenkins, and asked him if he would be interested in taking on the responsibilities of the individual that's retiring. And he's done an extremely good job, I think, for working with us all along. He's easy to work with, motivated, kind of like the silent guy that just moves around and you never really, he's never in your way. So I asked him if he'd be interested. He was very excited to have that opportunity. Of course, we'll have to approve that. So it'd be a promotion for him. And the number that's in there, $25,636, is a reduction in our cost compared to the previous individual. The recommendation is that we hire Trevor at $17 an hour, not to exceed 29 hours per week. And then that opens up his position. And one of the things I thought about was that a good chunk of what that maintenance work crew position was for was outdoor stuff, lawn mowing and that type of maintenance. So my proposal is, and you'll see it in here a little later, to take essentially that amount of money, which is I put in as $20,000, and put that towards having the same lawn mowing stuff, the maintenance that our crew was doing, and farm that out to Freedom Works. And I think that would be, it kind of does a double duty. It really helps those individuals in our community that need that kind of work. They already do work for us at the parks, and it would just be an small additional amount of time for them to add those things in there. I'm going to hold this position open because it's an experiment. We want to make sure that we don't overload one individual. I believe he can handle it, and I don't think it's going to be an issue. But so in the budget, that 20 grand, 19,684 is in those numbers. So if you took that out, you'd have $100,000 under budget. We'll scroll down. Cemetery. What we've done with the cemetery, or proposing with the cemetery, is to, stay on top of this 2 sheets of paper here, is using money that's in the capital improvement account and putting $50,000 towards major maintenance on the cemeteries, tree removals. There's some major trees to be removed, fences that need to be replaced and repaired, and I believe we found some dedicated money in that, to the best of our knowledge. Mary, maybe you know
We'll have to
those.
ask Mary that one.
$252,000 or something like that.
$52,000, I think it's reserved in capital improvement. What's that for?
That was for purchase of a new cemetery.
The 200 was, right?
Pardon?
The
The
200 was.
200,000 was. And then, when we acquired that property from Levy off of Clyde Road by Fish Lake Road, we left it in there for development of the cemetery if we want to do that. Now, the township's not obligated to provide cemetery. We have to. The occupancy rate isn't such that we were really worried about having to build a new one, but that's what that money was put in there for.
Okay. I knew that 200 of it was. I wasn't sure about the other 52.
I don't know, I'd have to look back on my budget sheets. to
And
find
Karen
out
and
why.
Amy didn't know what that was for. They said it was something that happened prior to 2008.
I'd have to look back on, because I kept track of all of those.
Okay.
Right, then,
Just goofy the way they record it.
so
You know what I
as we
mean?
go along, there's other items that are gonna be totaled up in that, to be taken out of capital improvement, so we'll total those at the end.
But I think that's a good thing to do, is pull that money, because I don't see the need to build a new cemetery. And,
And as a matter of fact, there's a developer that's interested in that property, so it may be behoove us to put it on the market.
I don't know that we can, but that's something to look into.
Good point. Well, I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah,
We'll
because
have to look
there
at
may
that
be a
Kent
clause,
side
if we don't
agreement.
use it for that, it goes back to levy.
Oh,
Well, we might be able to leverage that,
It may be, yeah.
leverage that. So, all right, we'll move on to the next items, activity,
Rick, on that
Sarah?
cemetery one, when I was taking care of the cemetery, that one on Three Ridge Road could use some fencing
That's part of
replacement
it.
in the back too.
Yep.
The front's okay, because we redid that, but the side and the back need.
That's
it's all
part of
farm
this.
fence on part of
Yep.
it.
The fence in the Highland, the Milford Road one, 99% of it is usable. It needs to be cleaned up and painted and that type of thing. There's some crushed pieces, but those are fairly simple. The fence in the front, we're gonna do a different technique on that, so
To
that'll be.
repair what's there.
We're gonna replace it with wrought iron to look just like it does. And, but we're gonna do that through a kind of a sharing process, so I estimate the cost probably gonna be somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000.
Sharing process with,
People putting in some time to paint and help install and that type of thing. So, any other questions on that? Okay. When we get to the activity center, the annex building, we've set aside $35,000. The storm windows, some of the windows that are in the building, the ceiling needs to be, in the older part, needs to be replaced with a drop ceiling. And there's some reorganization of some of the office space that we want to do to improve the usability of some of the spaces that are there for more multi-purpose use. So that's what that amount is for. Also coming out of capital improvement. General government, township maintenance, you can see just above the pink spot there. I put 20,000, that's the 20,000 I was talking about. We allocate 30,000 a year for that. General maintenance, which is a bunch of stuff, I guess. But that 20 grand would be the amount we put in there to help pay for the additional work that was being done by the maintenance crew. The next item, building renovation. I put $100,000 in there for window and facade repair and replacement. The building's got these windows that we can't even open. anybody that's been in the building understands that you can't even get outside air unless you leave the doors open. Only a couple offices, I think Judy's offices are the only ones that have working windows. I think that also could be considered a safety issue, and I think it needs to be addressed. We haven't actually had a quote on that. Having been in the building business, I can look at it and say that it's not going to be cheap because it's of the old windows that are in there. Along with that is the facade on the front of the building. We had some ant issues, and when we started to look at it, there's a lot of rot in the material on the front facade. So we're going to have to probably pull that down and repair it. So at that time, what we'll probably do the projection is to have somebody come in that's an architect and look at the building and do a way to freshen it up. And so that also is, yeah, to come out of capital improvements. Let's see here. I see a line here that says activity center total. That's not correct.
It's not.
That isn't just the activity
Oh.
center. That should be general government.
Oh, yeah, we just relabel it.
Yeah.
No, that's not correct.
Well, we'll fix that. Okay, the parks. What we've done on the parks is there's Hickory Ridge and Duck Lake Pines. We'll leave $3,000 each for incidental stuff that happens. We keep having trees that drop and fall, and small items that need repair here and there, and we want to be able to just access that without having to do too much extra stuff. And then I put in $15,000 to fix the gate and the pathways at Hickory Ridge Park, and $20,000 to fix the tennis, hockey, and basketball courts. And one of the items under GGP, the next item, General Government Personnel Total, the pink is our estimated health, dental, life, and disability insurance costs. Because they're estimated to be 5%, and the amount of work that's involved in trying to track this stuff, I think we all know what's gone on with the health insurance stuff, and so we made the recommendation to not shop. And so the estimation is about a 5% inflation over this year's cost.
Well, actually, there's some additional costs. It's because, last year we had budgeted 180,000, and then it's going to 232 now. So some of that is the 5% increase.
Right.
And the other part of that is we've had a couple more people pick up the in-house insurance as opposed to
Okay.
taking the buyout. So that's also increased our cost.
All right, thank you for that.
So it's not just all 5% increase.
Right,
It's
that's more than
other
5% there, to go from 180 to 232.
Right. Okay, another item in there under unemployment, there's $7,240 unemployment bill that we're not sure whether it's gonna hit us this year or next year, so that's why that number's in there. The next item is General Ordnance Officer, and this is a conversation that the Fire Chief and the board has had over how do we handle this. The recommendation from the Fire Chief and myself was to go with a full-time Fire Marshal Ordnance Officer, and the board requested that we actually get applications for Ordnance Officer, Fire Marshal, and combination. So there's 3 separate options, and then we'll come back with those numbers. We're getting quite a few people that are applying, and so we'll have to be doing some interviewing here to some selection process, so we'll start that pretty soon.
Can I ask approximately how many applications you received?
I don't have the total.
14.
14?
Okay. Not that was counting.
Every day's a So anyways, the item at 19,500, that was the estimate was, I think around 40 grand. And we said we'd split that 50-50, and so that's where the 19,500 comes into play there. And that's why it's lower than the previous ordinance officer's pay. Building, that's all pretty much stayed the same except for the 3% increase, and an increase in payouts for inspections, a lot more inspections. The planning department, 3% increase, and pretty much everything else stays the same. A little bit of increase in ordinance revision, which we have been doing and looking at more, so that'll be important. The ZBA member fees, that has gone up $1,000 and $200 for something else, $1,700 for advertising, over $1,500 the year before. Social services, we got crossing guards are up 3%. The Christmas light thing is the same. I've made a division between youth assistance and community donations, which is community sharing, and we split the 15,000 that we had given the year before 50-50 into 7,500 each. Projected CDBG money expenses is going to be 50,000, and we have no grant expense figured at this point in time. Road fund, we had to put in there, and I think I did this one right because I caught it at the last minute, was $45,000 for the dust control. I haven't received anything from Oakland County as to an increase over this year. It may occur, but I guess we can deal with that when time comes.
Yeah.
So next item, the bus fund revenue. That's pretty much following right along with the numbers that were required by our grant and our fire department. Fire department, property taxes, we're estimating $1 trillion.
Goodness.
Look at that smile. No, $1 million in from property taxes. The grant's expired. The SAFER grant that we had is expired, so there's no grant revenue anticipated at this time. That could change, I guess, at any point in time if we found some additional grants, or
We've got 2 out right now.
so we can amend that when we get to it. Pretty much follow the numbers down. We need to appropriate $63,315 from fund balance in order to meet his expenditures of $1,077,315. And I can't reiterate strongly enough how that number is nowhere near what we need to for fire. I mean, these guys are on the road nonstop. It's really it's amazing. And to give those that haven't heard it before, we pay approximately $150 to $160 a year for trash pickup per household. That's the average that the fire department collects from the average household is $150 a year. So why does trash cost $150 and the services that we get from the fire are $150 per household? So you can see that doesn't seem to be, you'd think the fire department should be getting a little bit more of that revenue. So Are any of you old enough to vote yet? Well, when you get there, just remember these things, because what happens is there's a thing called a millage, which is how we get our money. The police get their money through a millage. That millage is the property taxes. That's the $1 million that we're talking about. So when the fire department needs more money, they have to ask for a millage. So it has to go to a vote for the public. You have to really think about those things. What's the value added by raising the millage? It's pretty hard to, in that case, to say, well, I don't know that we want to give them the money to take care of protecting our homes. All it would take is one of you to have a disaster, and you'd immediately understand the value. You could leave your garbage out for another week and it isn't going to hurt you. So, all right, so expenditures. Anything you want to talk about in there, Chief? I do have a question for you.
Yes.
You see the green mark down there?
That was for capital improvements. A few years ago, we ran into an issue replacing copious amounts of turnout gear because all of our gear was outdated. The plan moving forward is to have a schedule or a planned replacement of all equipment. Air packs, bottles, air bottles are only good for 15 years before they have to be taken out of service. So instead of waiting till the last minute to buy everything all at once and having to come back complete for $150,000, we stay on schedule of replacing stuff on an annual basis. We won't be caught with our pants down.
Okay, do you want us to add that 25 in there? It's not part of the budget right now.
None at this time.
Okay. All right, police. Lieutenant Snyder, you've done an excellent job. So has the fire department. I have 0 complaints. I mean, I can't think of anything you guys haven't done that's been just top notch. One of the things that we want to talk about, the lieutenant came into my office and we've had a few complaints about some of the traffic. Some of you maybe saw something on the news about News 4 or somebody being out at Hickory Ridge and Clyde Road. I was in Arkansas at the time and got an email from the news reporter. And I did respond. I responded that, every time you check on the trucks, they're doing the speed limit or less. The cars, the thousands of cars that drive it are probably speeding more. They spent probably close to $1 million on that intersection to modify it to make it safer, and tore down structures there as well to make the clear view better. It's one individual that has complained. I have heard it from nobody else.
We get occasional complaints, but this particular one, they went directly to the media, and that's why it kind of
puffed up. So anyways, the point that I'm getting at is, and we had kind of talked about this before, was we used to have a weighmaster, and what Lieutenant Snyder has shown in here is that we could get that weighmaster in there and still stay within budget. And we need to approve that position in order. Will that have to be a resolution that we'll pass? Do you get something?
My budget reflects that I can do it without touching my fund balance. My budget, conservatively, every year since I've been doing this, I've been able to build the fund balance up. So the weighmaster position, I proposed it in my budget. If it's something the board is willing to approve, they would have to amend our 2018 contract, and the board would do a resolution where the sheriff's office would, they would take it over to the board of commissioners and amend the contract.
So we can do that at a later session.
Correct.
And I think what we'll do is, if we make a note, let's see if we can get that on October.
The intent is for it to take effect January 1st.
Right.
What's the role of the weighmaster?
The weighmaster is a dedicated position strictly for commercial vehicle enforcement. We had one, the last time I believe we had one was back in 2009. Due to revenue and my budget, that position was lost. And the priority went to the call for service cars, and I have to have a minimum with those cars. We can still enforce that if we had complaints. That wasn't an issue, so it was just eliminated.
So it's a regular deputy?
It's a deputy who's specifically trained for commercial vehicle
Okay.
enforcement, and he's not gonna take your dispatch calls. He's gonna be out there strictly for the enforcement of commercial vehicles. If you have an M59, if you have an agreement with the gravel pit up there, I believe it's a smart thing to preserve our roads and for public safety to get that position back. That's my recommendation.
So full-time, that's the way we do that?
Full-time.
Okay. Just Highland Township?
Just 8 hours a day.
Just Highland Township,
Just
huh?
Highland
Okay.
Township. He would be specifically assigned to me. He would be specifically trained for that position. And it's not bumpable. He can't be pulled out. He's specifically assigned here.
I think it would, personally, I think it helped tremendously, because what happens is when you do get citizens that make complaints and you have a weighmaster, then there's a lot more, you know, when you say, yeah, we've checked it out, and so on and so forth, when you add the weighmaster component to it, the truck drivers now are a lot more on edge, because, an example, the deputies don't know all of the rules in regards to heavy trucking, and so they could pull a truck over but not recognize that, you know, the wear on a particular bushing shouldn't be there, and that's a significant fine, and, you know, so there's a lot of components to that the weighmaster knows. When you get pulled over, having had experience at this, when you get pulled over by a weighmaster, they comb your truck. If you have gravel sitting on your trailer hitch, that's a $250 fine. If you have gravel sitting on the edge of the side of a dump truck, that's a $250 fine. And it's $1 a pound for every pound you're overweight. So if you're 1,000 pounds overweight, that's a $1,000 fine. If you're 5,000 pounds over, which can happen easily, that's a $5,000 fine. So you have to have the scales and all the things that are required to do that.
Which we do have. Back when we did have that position in place, we did get a grant where we did get a set of scales. They're mothballed in a closet. We haven't had them certified. We have to get them certified through the Department of Agriculture. But we have the resources. It's something we've had in the past. You know, I think with the agreement with the gravel pit, with them contributing to my budget allowing it, I think it's just a prudent thing that we need to do. And it allows us to bring it back. I think it'd be a good thing to bring back.
All right. Yes, Joe.
And what vehicle would he be in?
He would probably be in a Tahoe. The cost for an additional deputy is about $132,000. It's not going to be a dedicated, it would still be used for other things, but it would be a Tahoe.
The good news is that for the typical person driving around, it's one more vehicle present that they're going to be nervous about speeding, you know, just because the vehicle's there.
It would add another vehicle into my
There's
fleet.
visibility.
Yep.
The next, what, you're anticipating a couple of years of construction on 59?
Yeah.
We're going to experience some issues, traffic.
Yep.
The extra position, it would come at a good time.
So, I guess if the board is interested, what we could do is have, I guess it'd be, come from your department, you know, from the sheriff's, some type of a request or a resolution, or do you want us to instigate it?
I can check with my department, what we've done before. I'm sure it's done in other communities with amending contracts. You know, when they add positions, they do it in the middle of a contract all the time. So let me inquire with my department. Maybe they'll come from you, but maybe they'll have like a draft of one.
All right, that'd be great.
And I'll let you know.
Okay, and then we can, if we can do that between now and the next, that's a short period of time, maybe November.
Dumb question, because fines that occur, where do the fines go?
It's still through the 52-1 district court. And I can't give you an exact how they break down fines from each citation. It's, a portion goes to the court, a portion goes to the state, a portion comes back to.
So some might come back here.
It would all be written under local ordinance.
I didn't know, I just was curious.
Yeah, they wouldn't be state law violations. They would be done in a way where some of the revenue would be trickled back to the township.
Okay.
But understand this, my reasoning for this is for preserving the roads and for public safety. It's not a revenue generating.
No, I know.
operation.
I just didn't know where the fines were.
The portion that we get is under the general fund under district court monies. So far, at the end of August, we had $28,750.
Right, well, we'll carry that forward. I guess if you want to go ahead and just,
I'll research my end. I'll make a phone call tomorrow and I'll let you
and
know.
then we can determine from there whether it be October. We'll have another budget meeting in October. So we could have it in the second, put it forward in the second workshop as well. So I think it's smart to get it done.
It gives it time before the holidays hit for us to get the board of commissioners if it's something we're willing to do.
Right, okay. That's good.
It's a good place to put changes to the positions too.
We're going to move from police. Thank you very much, Lieutenant.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Post-retirement benefits, expense, we've listed nothing because we're, at this point, we don't have any numbers to,
We think we're fully funded.
so we should be all right there. And then the refuse fund, for the past couple of years, we've been dwindling down the fund balance that was in that account by keeping the rate the same for, it was 150 is what it was. So
Actually, the cost per household was, I think, $153.12.
right. So what's happened between the toxic hazardous waste day, which is significantly expensive, but I think does an awesome job of preventing people from just pitching it in the woods or down the drains. So what the new refuse collection projection is, the revenue is $1,072,830, and what we're proposing is we're going to base that on increasing the cost to $165 per resident. If we don't, we'll go into the red on this one. So we need to get it back up to where it will cover itself. So the previous hazardous
What's that
waste.
right now, 140?
150.
150.
10%.
It was actually 153.12 is what it was costing,
That's the cost, yeah.
and we had it at 150. Actually, since we signed the agreement, 4 years ago, whatever it was. So we've put in there for the under refuse community service projects $55,000. That's to cover the waste day. So that worked extremely well at the high school. I mean,
There's something we need to find out. As we were talking about this in my mind, I was trying to think of a way we could get, even the way we had it set up, and we're still on the Milford Road with traffic, so somehow we gotta set up maybe times alphabetical or something. Maybe we could get creative out of the box a little bit, but it still was unsafe. I didn't go up there, but I heard the traffic. We had them winding around. It was, it was nonstop. I was staying the whole day, and got to find a way that we run them around the front by the elementary school or something to get more cars.
yeah, well,
I don't know how we can do it. We got to think of something. I know it's down. It's not. We have ways to do it, but just
So
in
we
my
had
mind, I'm
other-
thinking we got to get them off of the road, or if we get may have to get the sheriff, the deputy out there or something. I mean, it just was hearing people out there how they were backed up all the way down to the ice cream place just to get on the boulevard.
yeah.
And we had them coming down too, so which is great that people came out, but Just, that's why, one reason we moved it, because we had 1 year we had them on 59 backed up so far, so somehow we gotta come up with something.
Can the hazardous waste team add additional
I don't know
tables?
if they entered
to-
that next thing in the right spot.
I don't know if they can, I mean, that's something for a different time, I'm just saying what's something, I was just, as we're talking about the hazardous waste, that's what was kind
Can
of
they have
spinning around in my head.
additional unload stations? The people that are taking.
No, because what happens is you want them to unload the product.
Why not,
because
could they get additional staff to keep the unloading moving a little faster?
I think they're,
I mean, they moved quickly, but just, there's just so many people, which is a great thing,
Yeah.
but just some way to, I don't know what the option,
what was it, 850 vehicles in 4 hours?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I think we can do more to educate the public about,
Combining.
combining
Yeah,
in, so there's not
neighborhoods.
so many cars. You
They'll
know,
come in
like,
with one can of paint.
right,
Sure.
work together and have one car for several houses bring the stuff instead of each
maybe
person.
neighborhoods can consolidate on a trailer or something.
Yeah.
All right, so,
All right.
Yeah.
next item is capital improvement fund revenue. The items that we listed throughout there come to $220,000. There's currently $3,301,789 in the capital improvement fund, of which 607,000 is committed to levy and 252 some odd thousand is reserved at this time, and we'll look at that and see how we'll deal with it. But that's actually around 10% of the money that's in the capital improvement account to do some things that
Now, is that the
Need to
money
be
that's
done.
there before you put the stuff in, out of capital, or we put stuff in under capital improvement, is that what we're starting with?
Yeah.
Yep.
Then subtract them and stuff you put in the
Yep.
budget, okay.
Yep. So what's happened is, over the years, we've had budgets where we came in under budget in terms of, you didn't spend all your money, so you had a fund balance, and then we had some pretty healthy fund balances, and then we would move the money to capital improvement or some other thing. We generally do capital improvement. So I've itemized the different items there under the capital improvement fund expenses: $50K for cemetery, $35K for the annex, $100K for building renovation, $15K for Hickory Ridge Park, $20K for Duck Lake Park. Time takes its toll on things, and I think we've got pretty good value and use out of the assets we have, and it's time to reinvest in them to.
Is there anything else we should be looking at? That's a lot of money sitting there, is there anything else we could be, that we know we need to take care of, capital improvement? Because, I mean,
Well, right at this point,
Let's get through this stuff.
yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff to
okay, well,
deal with that.
You know, Brian, part of the reason why we were putting money in there too was eventually to build a new township hall on the property over by the library.
yeah.
Is that still in the box somewhere?
It's always up to the current board to decide.
Well, it's up to the voters, actually, because we probably have to bond that thing. Unless we can somehow save $5 to $6 million in cash some way.
No, pull a White Lake.
No.
Well, that's another topic. I mean,
I just asked because it was
Yeah.
brought up, I
If
didn't
kids
know
want
if
to
we
meet
had
and cancel it.
something in
I
the
know,
box
I've
somewhere.
heard that.
I think we have differing opinions on the board, so we'll rather get into those, we'll carry forward here.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Fire capital fund revenue.
Where you at?
Where did that one come from?
Capital.
Did I jump off someplace?
Got it.
Got it there, so,
It's not there? Yeah, it is. It's on the screen.
yep. Getting fuzzy-eyed here. The library, there's probably some more numbers that might be able to go in there, but generally their revenue exceeds their projected expenses by a few $1,000s. What's expiring?
The library, this fund is expiring in 19.
Judy, can you talk up this fan?
Yeah.
is-
The library we paid off in 2019.
Okay.
So this fund will only be on here for this year and next year.
And the DDA, we didn't get your numbers in yet, so.
No, we're working on
And the,
We talked about elected, compensation. So before we finish up, I'd kind of like to just have a little discussion with the board on what you think that we should do with elected compensation.
With what, say again?
I'm gonna shut that off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
We
very
have to
strict.
we have to approve that separately, Joe, from the rest of the employees' compensation.
He didn't hear what you said in the first place.
Oh, okay.
It's just noisy.
We have to.
Talk for me, Brian.
It's kind of like the old Saturday Night Play.
There you go.
I
Okay.
kind of wanted to get the board's opinion on, or just have a discussion about what we'd like to do with the elected officials' compensation after the cuts last year. And we do have to approve that separately. So I kind of wanted to go through a little bit of an overview of what it cost Rick and I, because we were the existing employees, and go from there. The cuts were, for the new board members, we took away health insurance for our spouses, and we took our defined contribution package from 15% to 5%. And neither one of those, well, the 5% lines up with the new employees. The rest of the package doesn't line up with the employees at all. So some of the things that came out of that were, there's 5 employee packages that are greater than the lowest in-house officials, including both the deputies' packages are more than Tammy's and mine. It cost Rick out of pocket at least $18,000. It cost me at least $11,400. My question has always been with this, we really have to look down the road to think about who we're trying to attract to these jobs. These jobs are bigger than just a normal job. We can be on the attack all day, every day. We can have wonderful phone calls like I had this afternoon, which makes it all worth it. Anytime we go to a business association luncheon or anything like that, that's money out of our pockets. If we do anything to motivate the employees in our offices or the office as a whole, we pay for that. It can't come out of taxpayers' dollars. And I think those are a lot of things that the public doesn't know, probably part of the board doesn't know. So I would respectfully like to ask actually for a resumption of our packages as they were to start with, and see where that rolls. So I'd love some input from the board, and I'd like to hear how you think about that.
Well, I didn't know where we were going, Ron. I was gonna bring that up. We're talking about 3% for the rest of the people that work in the building, and we have, and this budget right now it's like we're $88,000 to the good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I just did the numbers on 3% just for the trustees, $157.50 each, that's $618. I mean, I figured, and I look at it this way, I think we're doing a great job with the budget, and we're in budget, we're actually under budget, and I think, I didn't, so I was thinking along the same way. I mean, it's not the same as what you're talking about, because it's different numbers, but it's still something that, we took a cut of $531.75 from what we made from the last election, the first time we got elected. The board then is trustees, so Mary Pat and I, and then the new trustees are we're all down to 52.50. So I mean, and I think we're probably, I haven't looked at all the places, but I know some of the places get paid a lot more than those for trustees and different townships. And I think we're obviously definitely a good bang for the buck, but I think I'd like to, look at the same thing. Different numbers, of course, because we're talking different positions, but
Other thing,
I know before, I think part of the issue when Mr. Dittmar was on the board before, and he worked on this, he worked very hard on it, and I think at that time, money was a little more of an issue. And to save money for the budget was kind of tight, and I think that was part of his thought process. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong. But I'm all in favor for looking at whatever we can do to, even though you don't get, what your, I did not agree with the comment last time that, you should be locked in for 4 years. I don't think it's like teaching in Huron Valley Schools, you're locked in for 10 years and a bad salary. But That's my personal thing, but, you know, I don't think you should be locked in for 4 years, it shouldn't be automatically locked in for 4 years. I mean, it's not like you should always be giving yourself raises, but, I mean, I'd sleep well at night if I gave myself $157 raise for the year, because of the job that we do, so.
Well, it's all relevant to the performance, I mean, the performance of the township and income and revenue.
Right.
That's the driving force.
Right.
As it would be in business, you know, if you have a good year, then there's always, you know, in essence, a bonus or, you know, or increase. But
Right.
it needs to always be tied into, are we being successful in managing the revenue stream and managing the expenditures? That's gotta be paramount, so.
If it was the opposite, and, you know, obviously we were just squeezing by, then obviously probably wouldn't be having this conversation, even though more personal to some than others, once you've been through, but, you know, we're all that way, we're all at the best for the township, but right now we're doing better again, and probably out of the scheme of things, I mean, it's gonna be small percentages compared to, you know, in terms of what's there available to use.
I mean, as trustees, Mary and I are so desperate, we're carpooling together.
Well, I walked down 59, I just went through the cone with the barrels.
It's just looking on top.
She picks me up on the way down.
There have been some surveys done of local townships done by Brighton and one other study that we have available to us that we can send out. And it kind of looks at what the different townships in our area pay for both salaries and what their benefit packages are. And I could send those out to you guys for consideration to
That'd be good.
see if you think what we have makes sense and that kind of thing.
The 3% proposed for this year was because that's what we're hearing as far as comparables. Oakland County gave 3%, most of the surrounding communities are giving 3%, and that's the biggest raise we've given in, what, probably 10 years? If ever. So to put that in perspective, Rick's decrease in his package was 13% last year, and mine was 15%.
Yeah,
So,
but Judy, you know, I know when Chuck Dittmar went through all of that stuff, it wasn't about the money, it was about why are you running for office, you know, and he wanted to make it clear that whoever was running, this is what you were gonna get, you know, and so for the benefit package, you know, he was very adamant about that this is what you're getting. I think it's not unreasonable to look at the percentage increases for in-house officials because it is a full-time job and it's cost of living, and we've traditionally always given in-house officials the same percentage raise as the employees. You know, ever since I've been involved here, we have. But I don't agree with changing the benefit package because it was very clear that this is what it is and this is what you're running for, and you knew it when you were running, and
in October. I mean, right before the election.
well, I mean, you didn't have, his view was he didn't have to run if he didn't want it.
Oh, that was made very clear.
Right, the timing on that was unusual because they started working on it in the spring, but some of the biggest changes were made when the motions were clarified at the October meeting, which was after we were elected.
No, you weren't elected, you were nominated then.
Nominated.
You know, at that point, it would have been to walk away and say, oh, sorry, that's not what I thought it was gonna be, you know.
And, I mean, let's just get down to basic philosophy. How fair is it that Tammy's and my deputy, their overall package is more than ours? And you expect us to manage those people? That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's always been that way though. There are other people in the building too.
It hasn't been that way
No,
before.
not here, other places. You know,
Okay.
there's always places that the deputies get more. It's just, you know, is what it is. And, you know, is it right, is it wrong? You know, that depends on how you feel about it. And there's like a different opinion for everybody. But,
I'm voicing my opinion.
well,
Well, I think if you're gonna look at, from Judy's perspective, as well as mine, I mean, it was a yes vote in that, what I'll call a fiasco at this point.
But you
I
voted
wasn't
for it.
very clear myself. I did vote in favor of it, and that's why I haven't really said anything much about it. But if you're gonna give somebody a 3% raise, that's still taxpayers' dollars. You should give the raise in a place where it isn't taxable. Then everybody benefits more from it. The township benefits more because it's not paying the payroll tax on it. So there's a lot of reasons to not necessarily raise our salaries, but to bring the compensation, to the defined contribution up to a different level potentially. I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, I can survive on it for sure.
Yeah.
It definitely, an $18,000 cut was a major, the impact was truly felt. I mean, that money came out of my pocket, my family's pocket, in order to be able to, which was something that was collected before. Now, yeah, it was a board decision, I was part of it. I didn't really realize the impact it would have physically, you know. You can look at the numbers and go, well, yeah, that might be okay. Makes a huge difference. There's not a lot of people that can take an $18,000 hit in any pocketbook. So,
And it goes back to, and it's bigger than all of us, what are we trying to attract down the road? I mean, this is a great board. We are majorly moving the township forward. And it's like, you want to keep that momentum going. I mean, you don't.
Yeah, but they're not even open for 3 years to try to attract anybody, you know, so you wanna do that in 3 years when you're gonna have a new board, then that's an argument for that.
Okay.
What was the driving force, I guess, when this whole episode started? I mean, I wasn't.
The driving force was a couple people's philosophy that, number one, they would never give an elected official a raise. And if you did this, it should be a calling. And you should be willing to take less because it was a calling. And that's how it was explained to me.
It had nothing to
And
do
I
with
said
revenue and expense for the township?
we weren't hurting at
No.
all.
It didn't have.
Money was,
No, it didn't, no, I couldn't remember.
money was not a bearing.
Okay.
Again, my brain comes.
I remember talking about the savings, that's what I was thinking in my mind, I guess.
My
No,
brain
we
comes
had
from a business background.
over
which
$2
means,
million
if we're
in our
doing
fund
okay,
balance.
then we should be okay. If we're not doing okay, that's a different story, but it's.
That was not the case.
Yeah, okay, so I mean, that's how I always approach things. I'm gonna look at things,
Absolutely, it's
if-
dollars and
if we-
cents
if we have
first.
If we have a good year, then we have stability. If we don't have a good year, then, then the axe comes out and we change things. That has to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that from the perspective of what Judy's point is, I wouldn't say that I did this because it was a calling, and I didn't do it because I needed the job. I felt I had things that I could offer to the community that would add tremendous value if I was a part of it. But at the same token, there are people that would consider this as a beyond a calling, and the value added to taking on this responsibility. Judy and I think I'm on 12 lake boards, you're on 11 lake boards. Those required, Lynn's sees us in action in all kinds of different places. It averages a minimum of 2 nights a week on top of the job the rest of the time. And there's other weeks where it's you got a board week, the next week you got a DDA, and it's every week is taken up with these after-hour things, which most people don't know exist when they take the job on. And so it becomes a job where, if you take your actual hours, which I do track, and every year I've exceeded 3,000 hours. And I don't necessarily expect compensation for that, but I put the time in. I think it's added value to the community, and I'm accessible. And I think that's something that's important, and there is some value there, and if the board sees fit to make a change, I'd be happy to take the change. I do agree that I voted in favor of that thing. I think it was a little bit on the contentious side. I know it was on the contentious side, and it did hurt some people. And it hurt, and I think it was something that I'm not 100% sure that I fully understand anything beyond one trustee that for some reason doesn't believe employees should get paid very well, and another trustee who felt that we could save, quote, taxpayers' dollars by lopping out $30-some-odd thousand out of some elected officials' pay.
So
And
what's the timeline we have that we're trying to work under right now?
We just need to approve it as approve whatever as part of the budget.
By the end of the year.
So by the end of.
Okay, so we don't.
I would
we
like,
don't need a decision.
Tammy, I'd like to get,
Okay.
please send that out, the comparisons. I mean, I know some of the stuff that they make, and of course, some places are a lot bigger than this, like Waterford,
Oh,
for
yeah.
example. But I'd like to find out, what comparables and what are they making, and
And one of the things I'd like to propose too is that I feel like some of those decisions were made without understanding what the bottom line was, what economic impact it was gonna have on the individuals and on the township as a whole. And so if there's ideas about directions that we'd wanna pursue, I can go ahead and work out the numbers. And so you can see what that does to the package for the individuals and also how that affects the budget, bottom line. So if there are thoughts, I can work up several different scenarios on what if we did this, what if we did
Yeah.
that? And I can do that. I think that's the best way to look at those kind of decisions.
put some proposals together that,
Okay,
Right.
Can we go back like a few years so we can see the progressive as it was?
Absolutely.
And year end, income expense, what were the salaries then, and moving forward, okay? I'd like to see that.
Yeah,
so
we-
just to give you an example, the 3%, and this is pretty close to the number, which is built into this budget, of which we still are $88,000 under revenue, adds an additional $32,700.54 to the total expenditure.
what's that number again, 32 what?
$32,700 and
Okay.
some pennies.
Okay.
That's for the employees only,
Yeah.
3% increase.
Right.
And what was the impact for you and Judy?
I'm sorry?
What would the impact be for you and Judy then?
For
Oh,
last
for the
year?
3%?
3% for the employees was what was the impact?
We didn't even
What
calculate
will the
it.
impact be?
Well, I can send that to you.
Okay, all right.
So that's one of the what ifs we can calculate is 3% increase to electeds.
No, that was already in here, we talked about 3% already.
For employees only.
Yeah, okay.
We
So
didn't
that's
put the
in-
electeds in at all.
The employees are in there.
Right, okay,
So it would be these numbers here and 3% on,
3% on these,
3%,
but,
yeah.
okay, but the employees are here already.
they're already in there, yeah.
Okay, so that's the impact on this. Okay,
You just
yeah,
add those up, 3% of that is what it would be.
okay.
And then I did have one other thought on this to beat a dead horse, but with regard to the idea that we should do this as a calling, it should be noted that in South Lyon, no one ran for mayor in South Lyon because no one
Forgot about that.
decided it was worth their time to take the punishment of being an elected official for what they were offering for pay. So you have to look at that and think about, are people gonna desire to have this job and take the beating that you take day to day from citizens and all that?
We are the complaint department.
Right.
That's just part of what government is.
Well, so far, we haven't had any problem getting people to run, so.
Well, it was a weird thing.
Well, I'd like
that
to see,
happened.
I'd like
It was
to
just
look into
wow.
it. I think that'd be important to see what the numbers are and what other communities are doing, and so it's a good time to look. It's budget time. It's time to look at it.
Yep.
Right.
Now, we can't review or discuss these things until we're in a budget session, is that correct?
We have to be in a board meeting.
What'll happen is that, I think what we need to do probably is just to carry forward with this part, not with that conversation, but is, I wanna ask a question, was there anything that stood out that, there are any questions on that you think should be changed within this budget that we
On what we just
proposed?
saw, no, I didn't say anything that was earth shattering.
Good.
If that's the case, then we'll leave those numbers alone. The next thing we'll come back with is, an analysis of what we're discussing now, which would then,
That makes sense. I'm okay with that.
And if you get the DDA budget, like, next week or before,
I'll send that out with
Can I
an
comment
updated.
on
having
that?
that.
We've never submitted our budget any earlier than this. Usually we get it there by November, the meeting
But
in
you're,
November.
you're supposed to,
I
turn it
was
in.
told by the supervisor before, if I got it in by November, that was good. I'm just saying that so you don't think I'm dragging my feet. It's a little different over there than it is here. There's one person, me.
Well, we'll get it taken care of. We'll get it in, so.
No, I just wanna make
Yeah,
that
if
comment.
that's the premise
first
you
of
were
all.
working under, that's not a problem, just
Yeah,
get it
we're
when you
under a
can.
different, I know we're under the umbrella of the township, but we're still our own entity, so.
We don't
we're still
have,
required to.
we don't have
that
any
part.
authority to dictate to the DDA anything about their budget.
Yeah, other than, we need to see it, but, right?
Well, because we bookkeep it.
It's part of our budget package that we will have to vote on in the first meeting in November.
Right.
Mary, it looks like you have something to say, go ahead.
No,
I'd
that's,
like to hear
that
it.
was my point. We need to vote on it, so I'd like to see it as soon as we
But
can.
from my understanding, what I've been told, you were gonna vote on it in November. Is that a true statement from what I was told by the office? I talked to
We
your
could,
boss.
we could feasibly vote on it in October.
Okay,
In fact, we could have feasibly voted on it tonight.
well, no, like I
but-
said, nothing,
But that's not a
No, we're
problem.
not ready to vote on it yet.
Don't worry about it. We'll
okay,
get
my
those
next
numbers
board
in there.
meeting is the middle of October, that's traditionally when we approve it, it's the middle of October. So I think your last meeting, your next budget meeting will be
The week after that.
a week after that, so Mary,
So that
we
should be fine.
probably, yeah, we'll have most likely have the budget unless there's a problem.
Good.
That comes up,
Okay,
okay, thank you.
All right,
One other comment to be the really dead horse.
Oh, I would like for the minutes, when was the, package reduced, what year?
What?
This year.
What year?
2017.
17.
Okay. Okay.
I have
Yes.
one other comment I was just thinking about when I was sitting here. Another thing that came up during that time was the definition of an elected official as a new employee. Again, that takes away the incentive for anybody with experience that's worked in the building to do this job. So I was considered a new employee November 20th of 2016. My original hire date was October 21st of 2001. So just for a point, do we want to redefine that or not?
does our counselor have any thoughts on that? I mean, that, you know, our attorney?
It was basically up to us how to do that.
Well, he didn't have any suggestions.
Well, he advised us on the legality of it, and he said it was legal to do it that way.
Yeah, so it was really good either way.
So he didn't have any better terminology.
Yeah.
So what would have to happen is, as a board, we'd have to change the policy. That's what it boils down to. It's a policy issue, it's not a law.
So get clarifications as to what we're really doing when we
Right.
have.
Right.
Well, it would
become
basically
employees
say
Because they've been elected.
Right.
elected officials, it would probably be more incumbent elected officials would,
Or just
Right,
make
so
your
we gotta
hire and
review
date
that
your
one.
hire and date.
yeah.
Gotta review that one.
So we need to, that's a good thing to look at. Anything else, Judy? that-
I think that's all I can think of. The one last thing is I asked Amy to, and I can make copies of this for everybody, to just make like a quick overview of what she has to do for employee health care. There's 5 different ways that she figures health care for whomever. That's crazy administrative. I mean, it's just it's a nightmare. So if you want copies of that, we can send that out too.
Okay, let's do that. All right, on that,
You still have list of bills.
number 9, list of bills, you may want to move to approve.
I would move to approve the list of bills dated 9/27/17.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Okay, Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
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 motion carries.
All right, public comment. Got anything you'd like to say? Do you understand any of this?
Actually, I do, yeah.
Are you from Milford?
Yeah.
How much more rather than I?
Are you somebody that's like into finance or accounting or?
Yeah, actually, I was going to think about going to university for business, so
Oh, good, that's
it's
awesome.
good to know that.
That's why you stayed awake. That's pretty good.
There's two ways you can learn about this, well, three ways. You can go to college, you can take a job like this and learn the hard way, or you can marry your CPA.
Oh,
You did both.
I've done
I'd
two.
recommend a third.
I've done all three. How's that? So it makes a big difference. So, well, congratulations. I hope you.
No,
It can
I
be a
really
good-
appreciate you guys having me here. Like,
Well, you're welcome.
Awesome.
And anytime you want to come, and if you have questions, and we're in the middle of stuff, I do kind of let people speak out of turn according to the agenda. If we're on topic and you have a question, and raise your hand and we'll let you ask it, because sometimes you wait until the end or trying to figure something out when you haven't already heard it. It's pretty hard. So
I understand.
it's like that. We need to try and help you
All
out.
right, thank you.
Hopefully not confuse you. So, all right. Any other?
Yeah,
okay,
no,
go ahead.
Okay, 1528 Middle Road, Lynn Hansford. So I was just on this budget and raises and all this stuff, and I sat through all of it with Mr. Ditmar and Mr. Tierney. I'm glad you're giving the employees 3% raise, or gonna consider that, because over the years, they have been slashed pretty severely, I think.
Mhm.
The thing that I don't like about changing all of this, again, there was so much time put into it last fall, and it was public, his point was, Mr. Ditmar, was it's a public service position. And Mr. Tierney wanted to bring some of the compensation in line with what Oakland County was doing. So those were kind of the points I remember about changing this whole package. When they did reduce your benefits, they compensated you very generously. So to go forward now and just start building back in those the compensation back in that package, and considering a 3%, and I think you did kind of throw that out there, I think that's over the top. I mean, the whole idea was to bring your package in line with what was going on, you know, out in the, well, compared to other areas like Oakland County. Oakland County he was big on that. So, I don't know, if you're gonna, you know, compensate yourself with more benefits, then I'd say reduce your overall salary. Because that was the whole adjustment that was made, and y'all got huge, you know, quite nice raises on that. Very generous.
The previous 4 years, the elected officials did not have a raise at all.
But I thought that all had to do with you got voted in and you were at that pay. That's why.
And
we were at that pay for
we were
voting
good
in.
at-
But you guys are trying to change that. You're all trying to change this now so that you can get raises every year. And I know that's the general feeling of this board now, and that's coming out. I mean, you voted for what Ditmar and Tierney put together. You Rick, voted
I
for that.
admit to that. Yeah.
And I know Judy didn't.
I was gonna say, I didn't vote for that.
Well, I know you didn't, but regardless, there was hours and hours of discussion that went in on that and then, you know, the end result was you had nice raises, very lucrative raises, so. I don't really agree with going back on it. I mean, if you're gonna get into this thing of where you're gonna give yourself raises every year, even though you've been elected for 4 years and not stay with the way it was, or that's how they had it, you know, you were elected, that was the pay you were elected for those 4 years, and then if it got raised, it would be at a different point. You know, I just think it's, you know, again, you're all, you know, there's a little bit of money, let's take it, you know, and in the meantime, the taxpayer just keeps paying. And that was
Okay.
Tierney's whole point, you
Well,
know.
I appreciate your comments on that.
So that's it. I mean, I don't need a big explanation. I'm just saying, I sat through all of that, and now I'm looking at, oh God, now we're gonna
So-
back it all up and take more.
Right.
And
No,
I disagree with that.
I'd like to I'd like to respond to what your statements were. Partially because I do take a little offense to the comment about we got a little bit of money, so let's take it. I think that if you've watched how this board has gone after this budget every single year, we've done far from just take it. What we've done is add value left and right. There's so many things, Lynn, that have been done that don't show up in our
I don't
expenses.
deny that, I don't deny that. I
So
know
from
you're
that
working
perspective,
hard.
the other thing that occurs is, for some reason, the public has this idea that because you are a public, you are paid by the public, that you're responsible to do things that are different than the rest of the population. What's different about this job than anything else? We had
It's a
to,
hard job. I'm
we
not
had
saying
to
it's
ask,
not.
we had to go to the public and say, here's my job resume, will you hire me? That's the same as going to a business. So from the perspective of what this job is and how it should be paid for, is no different than the business world. It's a presumed personal opinion of how people feel about these jobs and the money that are being collected. Now, let me
I
finish.
feel that you set this up last time and you should pretty much stay with it. You know, there was hours and hours that we spent sitting here. That's my point. Not that you're not doing a good job, not that you're not the complaint department, not that you don't work hard and you're not doing good things for the community. But now you're just gonna reinvent this whole thing, and like I said, I think you were, compensated handsomely
Yeah, I think,
when you lost some of that compensation package.
so that's the other part that I want to discuss. The compensation is a package. And the way it's divided up is in a way that allows the taxpayer to pay less by giving benefits. That's what the benefit component's about. It's a non-taxed component. And so if you want to say the raises we got were significant, those raises actually increased the expenditure of the township in a way that could have been done by not decreasing the other components. So I guess my point
Now
is,
is you got the raise. If you're gonna go back and get the benefits, then cut the raise.
okay, that's your opinion.
That's
We
what
have a
I'm saying
different board
is,
now
I
too,
would
that's
see
the other thing.
The right
is
thing to do.
The board is comprised of different personnel, different people think different ways. And it's up to the board to have the discussion. and
Okay, I just
determine.
wanted to give you my opinion on what I just saw happen here tonight.
Yeah.
That's all.
And we appreciate that, so.
Okay. I'm the only one here, so.
Let's eat chopped liver.
I'm sorry. What do you think about it?
He wants a job. Yes,
First, I want to ask permission for me to add public comment to
Sure.
this discussion, being what I do. Are you guys comfortable with that?
you
Totally
have
comfortable
permission.
with that.
Name and address, please.
Elizabeth Bassovich, 2558 Pinery Circle, Highland resident. First of all, I want to disclose, I do not get any benefits, although I do work for the DDA, I get no benefits. I'm totally under my spouse's benefits, which I'm lucky to have. As a resident, and even if I wasn't involved here, I would want my local officials to be compensated. I was not part of the research. I don't know where they fall as compared to the other municipalities. When you say Oakland County, I don't know if that's Oakland County Townships, Oakland County. the
Oakland County,
government.
it was their retirement package. I think that was reduced from, you guys got 15%, it
was
went to
the county.
5, didn't it? Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I just want to make that point.
yeah,
And
that's fine.
I don't care who is sitting in that, I mean, I care who's running my government, but meaning I'm not playing favoritism. I think they should have decent benefit packages. If I know you were in the job you had, the job I had with automotive, when I worked with upper management, our benefit package was nice. And why should elected officials anywhere be treated any differently? Yes, there's a desire for that, but their desire is to work for the community. Another person's desire might be to design magazine covers. I mean, if you're qualified and you're working hard, and why shouldn't you be, as a taxpayer, I don't mind paying my elected officials what they should have for their benefits. And I'm not just talking to you, I'm saying that to all of you, so.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other public comment?
Can I just add one more thing? I know a lot was made of the raise, the cash raise that was added to the pay package. I just want to note that the numbers that Judy quoted earlier, the reductions that they received were net of including that raise. So even though the cash went up, the benefits were reduced so much that their net reduction was, as she quoted. So even though there was additional cash given, it didn't really make much of a dent in the reductions that were taken. And you know, it wasn't just the fact of, oh well, sorry, you don't get this nice little fringe benefit. It took money out of their pockets from the sense of they had to go out and shop for health insurance that they didn't have to provide before. You know, if you were 20 years old, that wouldn't be a big deal. But at this stage in life, that is a very costly thing to do. And that's why it was such a big impact, you know. When, you know, if you look at the numbers in total, you could see that it was not, the raise really didn't do anything to it.
It was less than 5% over. And we hadn't had a raise in 4 years, which we didn't expect a raise in 4 years.
So that's just more information on that.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And Lynn, thanks for your input. It is well taken. And on that note, I move that we adjourn.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Supposed to say this.